Hello, everybody. How's it going? It is Annette the Peacemaker from the Yang Gang Report Live, as we also call it, YGRL. And today, Faye and I we just got together. So like we've barely had like 2 minutes to talk to each other before we hit the go live button. But today we are here to talk about Joe Biden's pick for vice president, and that is Kamala Harris. And so we're just going to talk about like how we feel about that, and what like the future could look like, what it's going to mean to the election, and things like that. And then eventually we should be having our friends Ariel and Dr. Quintus Jet should be joining us here shortly. So they've always got a lot of good stuff to say. But in the meantime, Faye and I are just going to talk to each other. And if you guys have any comments, be sure to sign in to the Facebook StreamYard link. It should be there. You have to sign in to the StreamYard link in order to get the for me to be able to put your comments up on the screen. So, all right. So Faye has pulled up a video, and we're going to tie a lot of this into what this means for Andrew Yang and the Yang Gang. Okay. So, we have a video pulled up here of an interview with I forget the journalist's name now, but it's with Kamala Harris and Andrew Yang. So we can't get more connected than that. And so with that, I'm going to, there we go. I'm going to add that to the stream. All right.
Okay, so this is a video with both Andrew and Kamala Harris, but it really starts out with Kamala Harris saying, you'll see what, go ahead, let's just go ahead and start.
And I'm so glad and so honored to be joining our guest today. This episode is on the economic crisis in this country right now and the need to get money into the hands of people so that they can cover their basic needs. But we want to take a moment to recognize that today, the economic crisis is met with another crisis of policing in America. Last week in Minneapolis, a police officer pinned George Floyd, a 46-year-old Black man, to the ground and pressed his knee into Floyd's neck for 8 minutes. Floyd could be heard saying, "Please, please, please, I can't breathe." And reports said he called out for his mother, but the officer wouldn't remove his knee from Floyd's neck. George Floyd died. 2 months earlier, in Louisville, Kentucky, police officers broke down the door of Breonna Taylor's home at nearly 1 a.m. to execute a no-knock warrant for a person who had been arrested earlier that day and who did not live at that address. Kenneth Walker, who was there with Miss Taylor, believed the home was being burgled. He fired a warning shot. Officers responded with gunfire. They shot Miss Taylor 8 times, killing her. Breonna Taylor died. These 2 killings do not mark the presence of a few bad apples in an otherwise healthy profession, but rather they are only the latest visible symptoms of a crisis in policing in America, and frankly, a crisis in our democracy. We have Senator Kamala Harris with us today, and we are joined today by Senator Kamala Harris, who co-sponsored legislation alongside Senator Bernie Sanders and Senator Ed Markey that would provide $2,000 a month per person. The monthly Economic Crisis Support Act would also act retroactively to March to help relieve mounting financial burdens on the millions of Americans earning less than $120,000 every year. So thank you so much for joining us, Senator Harris.
Okay, it's so great to be with you, and thank you for your leadership and for everyone. I'm honored to be with so many friends, colleagues, and American leaders. So, let's just start with this moment. I do believe it's obvious that today, in these last few days, America is raw right now. America is raw, and her wounds are exposed. And we need to deal with that, and we need to confront it. And part of the issue here is that We have never fully acknowledged or addressed the fact that Black Americans have been treated as less than human through the course of the history of our country. And we have never fully addressed the systemic racism and the causes of what we now have been talking about even before these last few days in terms of the disparities, be it on public health issues, economic issues, or educational issues. And so, you know, when I think about this moment, I, of course, as we all do, think about George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery, and also about what we need to do to speak the truth about the innocent men and women, unarmed men and women, predominantly Black men and women, who have died at the hands of abusive police officers and criminal police officers. And so, you know, I also think of this as a moment where it's highlighting something which we've known, probably one of the greatest, most recent advancements among those in the fight for civil rights has been the creation of the smartphone. And for the first time, some people are seeing what communities of people have known for generations. And so it's time to just once and for all, 30 years after Rodney King, address all this and deal with it and understand that there are very specific things that we can do. These are not new ideas, but they lack implementation. And we need a national movement and a demand that we implement these reforms and do it immediately.
Yeah, thank you so much, Senator Harris. So, you know, one of the things that I think you're touching on that we've been talking about here at the Appeal and also just the national conversation is that what is happening is not just one episode of police brutality, right? I mean, it's an episode of the media and white Americans paying attention to the everyday reality of what it means to be Black in America, be Black in certain neighborhoods, and be under the thumb of a brutal police system. So what do you think and what do you want to see happen at the federal level? Obviously, a lot of this is a local issue, and we like to reiterate that because we want to make sure that people also pay attention to what exists on the local level. But what do you think we can do at the federal level, given that you're a senator who also has a long history working in the criminal justice system?
So there are a number of things, and you're right that the federal system is but one of a very big criminal justice system in America, a system of incarceration, a system that needs reform. I do believe that when we can implement those at a federal level, it also creates a new standard for what the states must do. And it gives those who are the advocates and the leaders in the movement for reform a reference point of what has actually been done and can be done. So there are a number of things. One, we need a national standard around use of force. So there are prosecutors around the country, and you know the names, who have attempted to bring these cases where there's been excessive use of force by police to court. They've charged the cases, but the standard is practically insurmountable, because the standard is this. When asking the question about whether there was an excessive use of force, the question is, was the use of force in that case reasonable? Well, we all know that, and if any of us have children or have parented children, we know that you can always find a reason for something. That does not mean it is right. And so what I'm arguing for, and what many of us are arguing for, is that we need to change the standard to ask not was it reasonable, but was it necessary? Was it necessary for that police officer to have his knee on the neck of George Floyd for not only those very minutes when he was struggling, but those 2 minutes and 38 seconds when he was clearly unconscious before he died? That's one thing. Change the standard for use of force. Another, independent investigations. I am a former prosecutor. I know what I'm speaking of when I say DA's offices, states' attorneys' offices should not be in the business of doing the investigation, much less the responsibility of charging and prosecuting a police officer with whom that office works every day. No matter how well-intentioned that prosecutor may be, it will not inspire confidence by the public, and justice cannot be done. So I'm arguing for independent investigations across the country. Bring in the attorney general of that state if they have criminal capacity. bring in another prosecutor's office, but bring in the United States Department of Justice, independent investigations. The other thing we need to do is we need to collect the data and have transparency. When I was Attorney General of California, we created what we called open justice. I ran the second largest Department of Justice in the United States, second only to the United States Department of Justice, in a state of 40 million people. They had never shared through an open data system criminal justice data, and nobody wanted it to happen, but we made it happen. We fought against the obstacles, and I exposed California criminal data around deaths in custody, around things like arrest rates and race based on race and geographic area, so that the activists, the advocates, don't have to scratch to get that information through public records requests, and can have the information so that instead of asking for change on bended knee, asking for these systems to do the right thing, we will have the evidence and the data that supports clearly the need for reform. So these are some of the things. We also need to have a national registry for misconduct, because where there are, we've seen these situations where police officers were let go for misconduct and were allowed to resign, for example, and then go to another jurisdiction, and there's no record of their previous misconduct, and we need to have a national registry. And the bottom line, Josie, that I feel very strongly about is this: bad cops need to go to jail, and bad cops are bad for good cops. So let's recognize there are two systems of justice in America. One, if you are a Michael Flynn; another, if you are George Floyd. And that is why the people are marching. So let's fight for the ideals that say equal justice under law. And there are very, very concrete initiatives that will make all the difference. Can't hear you.
What about now?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Someone keeps muting me on the host side, so I should.
That was the first appearance of Andrew Yang, and I thought this would be a good time to say hi to Dr. Quintus Jett, who just joined us.
Hello.
Yes.
I love how Andrew's kind of like
Hi,
ghost
Quintus.
appearance. Yeah, I was also, I'd like to get back to the video a little bit later so we can hear more about, we can hear Kamala kind of basically saying what Andrew says when he's on the stump, because that's about the next part of this video is about to happen. But before we do that, I also wanted to show an interesting tweet by Josie Duffy Rice, who is the interviewer here. I'm going to stop this screen share and start a new one to do that.
Okay.
So how are you feeling about the nomination or the, I don't know, what do you call them, the selection of the nominee for the vice presidency?
Selection?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a good, solid choice. Oh, okay. So, I mean, I think it's kind of complicated. I think overall, I'm happy about the choice, but I'm also seeing how it.
Okay, what's that say?
Was that the last one?
I found this really interesting, that Kamala Harris is the first Black woman selected for a national ticket, and the first South Asian woman selected for a national ticket, and the first person from west of Texas selected for a Democratic ticket. And together, they are the first non-Ivy League ticket since 1984. Now, I was also surprised by the fact that she's the first person from west of Texas who's been selected for a Democratic ticket.
Where is she from?
Well, she's from California currently.
And originally, her parents were from California, or not from California.
Oh,
but
west of yes.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, I think Ronald Reagan was his home state was California.
So this is for a Democratic ticket.
This is
So I
true.
find that's interesting.
Yeah.
So does that signal any real change in our politics, I wonder?
Well, and I think this signals less change because, I mean, one of the challenges for this pick is if Biden succeeded in coming up with a choice that could excite progressives, like if he could have done that to excite progressives in a really clear way, and yet doing it in a way that doesn't turn off everyone else, because that's always been the problem, right? Like if he had chosen Bernie or chose Elizabeth Warren, it would have turned off a lot of the quote other people who are actually coming to Biden a little bit right now. So yeah, I personally think that someone like Tammy Baldwin of Wisconsin would have done that because she's progressive, and yet on a visceral level she doesn't turn off moderates. But again, if you had chosen her, there would have been another set of questions that people would have asked, like questioning about her. So I don't think Kamala Harris is the perfect choice, but there really were no perfect choices. But I think she's a good one.
Well, let's go back to the video for a minute and let's see Kamala, hit all the points about the economic policies that we need coming up. Let's see here. All right, let me try again. And here we go. And Annette's lag today is pretty strong, so it takes a little bit to get it started. Quintus, are you disappointed that your favorite pick?
Hold on.
Are you disappointed that your favorite pick did not get picked? Because I know, yeah.
I am disappointed that she was not talked about much. It's almost like what happened with
We just had a really bad thunderstorm.
No,
we just had a huge thunderstorm go through, so it
probably knocked out some more internet infrastructure. Yeah. Mm. So for those of you who don't know, Dr. Jett's original pick for the VP was Tammy Baldwin. Is that correct?
Yeah, she was my favorite. I mean, I'm not really big on like that Biden needed to pick someone, but I definitely thought that she should have been at least in the final few. But she got sort of a little bit of the Andrew Yang treatment, like how he was she was kind of ignored. I think more than she's from a swing state, Wisconsin. I think she should have been at least talked about more than what she was. But that's that's done now.
All right, I'm gonna put on this next segment.
I want to move into our conversation about economics and income equality, and I want to acknowledge that like what we're seeing happening nationwide right now is also a reflection of people feeling an enormous amount of stress and anger around a government that they don't feel like is taking care of them, and so that goes beyond. That goes beyond policing. Obviously, policing is a huge part of it, but it's not just that. So let's talk about basic needs and basic dignity. So meeting people's basic needs is the goal of a guaranteed income. Right. And you've come close to endorsing a guaranteed income bill in the past. In 2018, not long after your election, you proposed major tax credits to middle and working class families. And this bill goes further, right? I mean, it's directly providing cash to people. Yeah, that's right. So how has the economic crisis presented by COVID impacted your sense of urgency for guaranteed income?
So, Andrew and I were on that debate stage together for a whole year last year. And before the pandemic, before these days of crisis unparalleled, Andrew would talk about the fact that almost half of American families couldn't afford a $400 unexpected expense, right? That in 99% of the counties in the United States, if you're a minimum wage worker working full-time, you can't afford market rate for a one-bedroom apartment. Essential needs, as you have said, right? Just basic needs for living. And because the fact is the cost of living in America has continually gone up, but wages have remained stagnant. People cannot afford to live and deal with essential functions of raising a family. I would often talk about the fact $400, you know what that is? Well, if you've ever bought 4 tires, right? Because you're traveling on roads that have potholes every day and you got to travel 2 hours to go where you work because you can't afford to live where you work. Right. These things add up. So what I'm proposing, along with Senator Ed Markey of Massachusetts and Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont, is that during the course of the COVID crisis, where now we have over 40 million people who lost their jobs within the last 100 days, that they will receive $2,000 per individual, $4,000 as a couple, $2,000 per child a month through the term of the pandemic plus 3 months thereafter. And the point behind it that maybe some would think of as even a moral point, as it's just about humanitarian concerns and priorities. 40 million people plus lost their jobs within the last 100 days. Most did not have savings. See that statistic about can't afford a $400 unexpected expense. And this is through no fault of their own. And what we want, what is just the right thing to do, is that, one, the government should be here for the people in a moment of crisis. People should be able to count on their government to see them and create a safety net for them so that these families don't fall into poverty or further into poverty during the course of this pandemic, so that they can get back on their feet when it is over. And that's what this is about. And we all benefit from that, not only as a society that is one for all, but a society that relies on each other's well-being for our own well-being. So this is essentially what it's about. And you would be surprised how much bipartisan support, at least among the people, maybe not among the legislators, but among the people.
Right.
There is for this.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, Congress has not followed up yet, but again, it's another reflection of how Congress, I think, especially on the right, often doesn't reflect the priorities of the constituents, right? Because we know research from the Justice Collaborative Institute and Data for Progress shows that voters strongly support additional direct payments lasting throughout the pandemic. 2/3 of voters, including most Republicans, want emergency once a month $2,000 payments for every person in America.
That's right.
We understand, I think, both on an individual and a societal level, that this is the way to get out of this pandemic, as in as good shape as we can, rather than letting the economy crater and people's lives crater, playing at some sort of imaginary politics. And I guess I'd love to hear from you why you think these direct payments are why do you think we need repeated payments? Why is one payment not enough? Why is 2 payments not enough? Why do we need to make sure that people have this for kind of the duration of however long this pandemic lasts?
Well, can you imagine someone saying, you need to only pay rent once, ever? Right. You only need to buy groceries 1 week.
Right.
You only for months, right? But you need to buy groceries for 1 week. The reality of life is that people have recurring expenses. And the fact that we, during this crisis, only gave direct payments of one time and $1,200 during what has now been months of people being required to stay at home for the sake of public health, right? While many did not have paid sick leave, some are losing their jobs. Almost half, if not over half of America's workforce either runs a small business or works for a small business, right? So you look at the connection there in terms of all the small businesses that are falling apart, and that also highlights the defects of the Paycheck Protection Program. So this is about saying, let us just see people based on how we all live. And the reality is that individuals, families have monthly bills, and it's about rent, it's about food, it's about basic necessities. And to see people through this crisis, we have to see them where they live and help them through the prism of how people actually live life. If we want to recover, this whole conversation about, let's open back up. Well, let's apply that spirit, right? Which is let's get back up, right? That's really the thing too, is let's get back up. Well, how are families going to get back up if they are so mired in debt? In fact, one of the things I'm also calling for is that credit card interest payments should be suspended during this period of time, because people who have credit cards are buying basic necessities with those credit cards, such as groceries. I'm also saying that during this period of time, we should suspend negative reporting to credit agencies, because once somebody's credit score is dinged, it can take a lifetime for them to recover and then have access to capital. So during the course of this pandemic, with 40+ million people who just lost their jobs, suspend reporting, negative reporting to credit score companies. And again, because the idea is that when we do open back up for real, let's give people every opportunity to jump back on their feet. Because right now, this pandemic has knocked a lot of people down.
And we know what today is, right? It's June 1st. This is the day.
But rent is due today.
Yeah, rent is due today.
Right.
And this is the third month. I mean, for some.
Hi, Ariel.
Oh, hi, you guys.
Yeah, I paused the stream so we can say hi to you.
Oh, great. Yeah.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I just wanted to test this thing out on my phone. It seems like it works.
Oh, have
Yeah.
you never joined us by phone before? You're right.
No,
You're usually
not-
on your sitting at
Yeah.
your desk.
Yeah, not StreamYard. Yeah. Yeah.
So how are you feeling about Kamala Harris being the new pick for the VP?
Don't care. But I'm happy to hear this, because it looks like she's got some common sense. Like when she's talking about, like, we just don't pay for rent or groceries once. Payments are recurring, and like a one-time check is like not sufficient. But the good news is like, it's like people on unemployment have been getting like $2,400 a month. So yeah, and that was sweet when it happened to me. But I mean, we got to think about other people too, though. I mean, like, the thing is that, like, what about people who didn't have a job before the pandemic happened? And what about people who were lining up a job before the pandemic happened, and they lost that opportunity through no fault of their own? But like, they weren't working, so it's BS. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt that in this particular video, Kamala Harris gives me hope that she can really pick up the same sort of talking points and the same policies that Andrew was pushing. Go ahead.
Right. Well, I was going to say that. I'm glad we stopped at that, because basically, I mean, she's capable of doing that, but I think it's really important that she show up, because at the end of the day,
Right.
people aren't being able to pay their rent now, and at least on the surface, at least so far, choosing her has not elevated that conversation yet, and it needs to. She's capable of doing it, but we really need that Kamala to show up, because I mean, we have some real stuff happening out here, and I think patting ourselves on the back because it's a Black woman will not be sufficient.
Well, I like the point that our viewer Brian Mannix made. He said that Senator Harris is going to eat Pence alive in the debate. Now, I think that might be one of the things that she brings to the whole, union between Joe and Kamala, is that she's going to be the attack, the attack person, and be able to do some of that for him. That while he hangs back and is his normal, kind of.
I honestly don't if Biden chose a Martian for his VP. As long as we get UBI across the finish line at the end of the day, that's all that's on my mind. It's like, I don't even care if he said, hey, I picked someone and they're from another dimension that has better technology than us. I'm like, okay, are they for UBI? Yes. Okay, get them in there. I don't care. At this point, it's like, that's it.
Annette, do you want to chime in right now with how you're feeling, or should we go ahead and watch a little more?
I just wanted to add on to that, on top of UBI, that we really, really need some sort of a universal healthcare system. Even if it doesn't have to be Medicare for all or whatever, but like some sort of universal healthcare system where the private insurance can still exist. Like, we're not going to die if private insurance exists, but like everybody needs some healthcare right now, you know? And so
Yeah, and not
I
just-
would really
not
like to
just-
add that. And
Not just like
I
free
don't know
testing.
that they are
All
right. Yeah, like we need.
Well,
I like Andrew's, of course, healthcare plan.
well,
But,
it reminds me. It reminds me of this commercial for like a bank security where this guy, like, the bank was being robbed, and then there was a security guard, and he just said, "Oh, by the way, you guys are being robbed," and he didn't do anything. It's like, okay, we have the alert, but if we have the alert, like, what point is that if nothing can happen? You know, it's like we know what the problem is, but what's being done to fix it? And I think we've had years and years of like talking about the problem and getting pissed off about it, but nothing actually being done to move the ball forward to actually fix it. So, yeah.
Did Annette get to finish her thought on this?
I don't know that I trust either Biden or Harris to push the universal health care forward. I think both of them are pretty opposed to it. So, but I might be wrong. If I am wrong, please correct me.
Well, what I heard is
that's
that
it. That's my last thought.
what I heard was that I think that Trump is already attacking her for wanting to, change the Medicare. So at least on the other side, they're saying she's definitely going to go for it.
Well, the sense I got with both of them. Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Go ahead.
I was just thought. I mean, the sense I got for both Biden and Harris, it's like, I think it's the issue of speed of getting there. It's like there are a lot of people who are against the Affordable Care Act initially because they're like, well, it's not Medicare for all, kind of stuff. And it was like, really, what Obama was doing was setting the next stage to get us closer. And so I think that's sort of what, Biden's position is from what I've seen. It's like he's basically saying, in an era where Republicans are trying to dismantle the whole thing, we need to basically do what the Congress should have done, which is strengthen what we have so we can get even closer to everyone being covered.
Yeah, and of course, our viewer, what is your friend's name again, Annette? The one that's here as James? She did say that Missouri finally passed the Medicaid extension. So it's taken a whole, how long has it been? Like maybe 5 or 6 years now? Or longer than that, for the states to even come around and start actually, giving their own citizens the full benefit of what has already been passed. So let's go ahead and continue this video for a bit.
Some people the fourth month, right? They are recognizing that they're, still have no kind of certainty in their economic future and still facing eviction when this is over, or really struggling in a very active, very present sense. And so I'm gonna we have a video here from a change.org petitioner and a Denver restaurant owner. Her name's Stephanie Bonin, and we'd love to hear your response to what she says. So we're gonna play that now.
Okay.
Wow, it's like a video within a video within a video now.
Have a clean driving record, no DUIs. You can drop your auto insurance rate to as low as $19.
Colorado. As businesses like mine get the green light to slowly reopen, we are not clear on our path to success, since we are reopening with both hands tied behind our back. We are juggling so much uncertainty, there is no room for error as we attempt to keep guests and employees safe and win back their confidence and also manage our finances so we can survive. In March, when it became clear that the economic consequences of COVID-19 were just beginning, I started a petition on change.org to ask Congress to pass $2,000 payments monthly for as long as this crisis continues. I was overwhelmed, but not surprised by the response. I knew families like mine needed more help from the government. As of today, 1.2 million Americans from all 50 states have signed this petition. I speak for all the signers when I say thank you. We are so grateful to you, Senators Harris, Sanders, and Markey, for introducing the monthly Economic Crisis Support Act. People need to be able to plan for how they will buy groceries, pay their utility bills, and start to spend money at small businesses like mine. We need your legislation calling for $2,000 a month to pass. The well-being of our families, businesses, and country depends on. Along with the leaders from Change.org and Economic Security Project, I urge you to share these petition signatures with your 99 colleagues and make sure that they know America needs more emergency money for the people. Thank you for your leadership.
So I want to thank Stephanie for that video, and I wanted to hear Senator Harris what you thought. And I just, 1.2 million people. That's an enormous amount of people. That's on top of substantial national research showing people want direct cash payments, need them, and would use them on things like food and shelter. And we talk about the individual because it's true. Individuals and families really need this, really need these payments. But what does this mean for the economy? I think what we're hearing from the other side is a narrative of we can't afford this. And to me, it seems like we can't afford not to do this, right? And so what do we think that these payments will do for the economy as a whole?
Well, let me start by saying, Stephanie, wow, that's incredible. And I will share your petition and all those names with my colleagues. We have a system where we send out what's called a Dear Colleague letter, and I'll get it to all of them. So thank you, because that takes a lot of work, but it's important for everyone to understand these are names and faces and people behind this issue. So, one of the things, first of all, that just I find tiring is those who want to suggest, oh, this is a lot of money, when they're the same people who passed a tax bill benefiting the top 1% and the biggest corporations of America and are going to cause us to face a $1 trillion deficit as a result of it. So let's put it in that context. But let's also understand, as Stephanie said, that getting this money in the pockets of the people is about allowing them to pay their rent. So their rent may be paid to a grandmother who owns a duplex, and that duplex is everything that she has in terms of a pension to retire on. That is about them being able to go to the local business, which, by the way, 90% of small businesses that were minority or women owned did not get the benefit of the PPP, the barbershop, the bodega, the beauty supply, or the beauty salon. So it's about that money going back into the stream of the economy. And it's about the productivity and what we will do to allow these families to be productive. On the small business small business piece, I also want to say this. Again, 90% of small businesses that were women and are women or minority owned did not get the benefit of the PPP. Ayanna Pressley, who's the congresswoman from Massachusetts, and she has it on the House side, and she's carrying legislation that we created. It's called basically Save Our Street, and it's about saving the business down the street. And specifically what we are proposing is for businesses that have 10 or fewer employees, of which there are many, that they will put aside a pot of $125 billion for them specifically. So they don't have to compete with all of these privately run and publicly traded companies, which is what happened last time, or the hedge fund connected companies. Instead, they will have a specific pot of money, $125 billion, so they can apply for loans and grants of up to $250,000 to get back on their feet. And that's part of, again, what we're going to do to help regenerate the economy. Because when these small businesses and when these families that we're talking about and those 1.2 million folks, when we help them, we lift up the economy of the nation as a whole. And it's really actually that simple. And so if you want to talk about cost, you can't do that without talking about benefit. And the benefit of this outweighs the cost every way you cut it.
Mm-hmm. So we want to ask you just, I'm not going to keep you all day, although that would be great. We're going to ask you just a couple more questions, but I wanted to show you one more video. This is another video of working families talking about what they're going through.
Can we pause this for a second?
I'm one of the million Americans.
All right. So, I mean, this is the thing about Kamala Harris. I mean, because actually overall, I do like her. And I do appreciate that she does try to mentally reach to be for the people. I mean, when she was running, it was like Kamala for the people. And I guess, but the thing we have to be concerned about is I'm not sure if she's really, her heart is at the street level to pull it off. I know mentally she wants to, and sometimes she tries, but this is not someone like, like sort of like where Joe Biden like used to take the train back and forth when he was a senator. So there's a part of Joe Biden that still connects to the everyday person. I'm not sure if Kamala can do that herself. And when it comes down to the policy of UBI and recurring payments, I think we should not be trusting this Democratic ticket to lead this charge because they are not going to do it. Just for various reasons. This Democratic ticket will not be the point of the spear to make sure that like we have UBI payments like on a regular basis. That this is not the two that are going to lead that. We're going to still have to do that. So in a way, it's like just respecting what, who these people are, what their strengths are and weaknesses are. And so again, I do think that in some way Biden and Harris, their hearts are with the people, but I don't think they're going to be the ones. We can't count on this, I think, in terms of advancing what we need, given the emergency that we're in.
Well, I guess our only hope is through those congressional candidates. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, like or other means, because it's good that Biden did listen to Andrews somewhat. That was good. And even Kamala Harris. She had some proposals that were kind of getting at it, but we need. In that sense, we really need to be thinking broadly. It's not just about this policy here, but how do we make the priorities of everyday people, not just in terms of the payments, like recurring payments, but for healthcare too.
Well,
How do we, I'm not sure where the leverage is, especially with only 80 days left before
here's the big question. How do we get people who actually care instead of people who pretend to care? Why is like, I heard from Politico that they are allowing Yang to speak at the convention, but we're not even 100% sure about that. So all this talk that Yang says oh, I may get a position in Biden's cabinet, but he's not even going to be able to speak at the convention. I don't know. It all just seems like they're doing everything in their power just to placate people who want real change without actually having to deliver. So the question is, it looks like the only way it can be delivered is through direct challenge, trying to take the seats of the people who hold power right now through Congress.
Well, it's like winning. I'm very interested in I always pronounce your last name wrong. Blair
Walsingham.
Yeah, it's in the first district in Tennessee. So, that's northeastern Tennessee. It's maybe 20, 25 points leaning Republican. And I'm really interested in that race because I think Blair has the stuff to actually, to bring UBI and other ideas forward. In fact, I think her campaign announced they're doing, I think it's a freedom grant. Well, 2 people in her district get $500 a month for 12 months. It's I think the act of campaigning through Congress and through other means is another way we can get this thought out there, these ideas, getting them where, because that's the thing, that in some ways this is all the unfinished business of Yang 2020. There are a lot of people who still never fully got the message on the ground.
Yeah, and Yang got the most media attention when he dropped out, which
right.
He's not.
We definitely need to keep yanging and keep trying to elect the candidates that matter to us, that actually are going to, promote the policies we want.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to continue, and pretty soon we're going to hit Andrew.
Americans who signed the petition for change.org for Americans to get $2,000 a month from the government.
I am an unemployed school bus driver. A one-time payment of $1,200. It'll help us for a month, but it's not going to keep us going until school starts again. And I just pray that the government can help us out a little bit more.
I've been a small business owner for 16 years and my doors are now closed. I continue to pay commercial real estate because my landlords are unwilling to negotiate. I'm not able to receive any of the SBA loans that were all but promised to me because they're running out of funds. This is how I feed my family.
I lost my job at the mall, my second job, due to the coronavirus. I don't have any income. My brother injured his back. He doesn't have any income. My dad has a construction job, and all of the projects are done. We need help from the government.
I cannot pay my bills because I'm not working and nobody's hiring because of this whole situation, this epidemic.
Don't know how we'll be able to put food on the table, buy toilet paper, buy toiletries. It's hard. It's so scary. I don't know how I'll fill up my gas. We need your help, and we need it now.
We are struggling and terrified about what we're going to do for our 4-month-old daughter and for ourselves because we can't afford to buy formula, pay for our bills, diapers, necessary things that we need on a daily, and we're terrified. We need help right away.
I've been waiting 4 weeks just to hear anything back from unemployment and have not received the stimulus check. Only error messages from the government website.
What would $2,000 a month for the government do for me? It would help me be able to stay afloat with my family.
But I signed this change.org petition asking for $2,000 a month from my government. Boy, would that help me and keep us alive. Thank you for listening. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Are you over 25? Have a clean driving record? No DUIs? You can drop.
So we're going to move on to our second panel, which is going to talk about.
Actually, before we get on the second panel, we're going to see Andrew. I think it's actually good to just talk about, like, if we have so many needs in our country, I don't think it's time. It's like, if we don't meet these needs, these are dire needs. Like, if you don't meet them, there will be people dying. There are going to be people who are going to, it's not just suffering. It's like we're going to lose people during this time. If they have no shelter, if they don't have health care, if they don't have food. And so it's like, what is the level at which people should be getting that help, right? Are you supposed to, everybody, go and ask your family to get that help? Do you go to the church and say, okay, churches, please help us? Do you go to are you waiting for the wealthy people to step up? I think there's only one correct answer to that, which is that the government has to do it. I just don't understand who's going to do it if not the government.
But then also too, there's the whole question about urgency. So, I mean, the real difficult question, that we need to talk about more within Yang Gang is, do we even listen to what Andrew actually says anymore? Because what has Andrew really said all this time? It's like he is supporting Biden, and he sees Biden and the Biden administration as the best way to implement all these things. In fact, he's talked about on his podcast this idea of, winning and almost using this opportunity of Biden winning to basically relaunch America. And so that's what like Andrew has been saying the whole time. But too often within Yang Gang, all this stuff about anti-Biden, it's like, are we even listening? If we respect Andrew, shouldn't we be listening to what he says?
Okay, well, we can actually hear what Andrew has to say too right now.
Right.
COVID-19 and what it's exposed about the underlying fragility of our economy. So we're going to talk more about direct cash payments and what recovering from this economic crisis and building lasting economic security in America actually means. You've heard a lot about what's happening at the national stage, and we'd like to turn now to some of the local efforts and success stories of those advocates and officials working to provide economic relief to working families. And we're delighted to be joined by our second panel, and including
look at all your hairs.
Incredible guests, including Andrew Yang, the founder of Humanity Forward, and another research candidate for president focused on basic income as a very core part of this platform. Thank you, Andrew Yang, for joining us. So let's start with you, Andrew.
Are you going to get up and grow into a big old guy?
Yes, I can hear you, Josie. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Your mic is doing great. You famously ran on basic income as an issue, and your Yang Gang and Early Momentum sort of changed the conversation of this election and made it really a mainstream issue before we even knew that this pandemic was looming. You've talked about the dangers of automation, and the pandemic has really shown that working families are economically vulnerable to much more than just machines, right? How has your basic income movement continued and evolved since the campaign and since the pandemic?
Well, since the campaign, we've given about $3 million in direct economic relief to struggling families around the country, and another $3 million or so is being distributed right now at movehumanityforward.com. So if you know someone who needs help, if you send them to movehumanityforward.com, unfortunately, we have a waiting list of tens of thousands of Americans, as you'd imagine, but we're hoping that we can help, and that's what we need right now. I'm thrilled you had Kamala on, because you have to look at it. You have to look at the opportunity we have right now. Our problems have accelerated, where we've experienced 10 years worth of displacement in 10 weeks. But we have a real chance here to alleviate poverty. Right now, there are multiple bills that would put $2,000 a month into the hands of every American for the duration of the pandemic, which we all know may extend for months, even years. And I will suggest to everyone that if you actually pass that, it's not like you can take it away from tens of millions of Americans like 18 months from now, because our economy is going to be a shambles ongoing. I mean, we're facing a new Great Depression, but there are legislators that have bills on the table that if enough Americans get behind, we can pass this today. Like what I fought for on the campaign trail is not hypothetical. We have tens of millions of Americans whose lives are disintegrating before our eyes, and we have to tell our government to get its shit together and get money out to the people. This is not an academic discussion. This is a life or death discussion. And we all know that the systemic poverty is fueling the riots that that are the outgrowth of generations of neglect. The fact that George Floyd is dead because he used what's allegedly a counterfeit $20 bill. I mean, you have material deprivation that is driven the oppression of millions of Americans, and it's led to tragic outcomes. So we have a chance right now, and we have to take that chance. Like, I applaud everyone who's been working on UBI for years, because, you know, we helped prepare society for this moment. But this is the moment. There is no tomorrow at this point. If we don't get this done, we're going to see our way of life disintegrate before our eyes.
Absolutely. So what do you say to people in terms of what they need to do? I mean, Senator Harris talked about telling stories and making sure that they're talking to their elected representatives. You know, I think it's remarkable that your organization and you all are doing so much work to get money in the hands of people, but obviously in the world we want to live in, that's the government's job, not people on the ground, right? And so how do we make sure that people know what to do, and how to make, how to really meet this moment and get it passed?
We need a political revolution in this country where anyone who is not for cash relief loses their position, and until our government is dominated by people who see that putting money into our hands is the right thing to do. That's it. Like, if your local candidates are, you might like them on every other level, but they're against this, they need to go. And if someone's supporting it, we need to put political pressure on everyone who's running for any national office or local office, even, that if they're not for cash relief, they're going to lose. That is the only way we have a chance to win. The vast majority of Americans know this is the right thing to do. The problem is that the feedback mechanism between people and our legislators has broken down. Like, our legislators have been overrun by corporate money. DC is the richest city in the country. Their lives are completely disconnected with ours. And so that's what we have to change. A political revolution is necessary. I was optimistic that my campaign could help accelerate that, but we don't have any time anymore. So figure out who represents you in office, figure out if they're for a cash relief bill. If they are not, write them and say, you need to get for this, or I will vote against you and volunteer against you in the next election. And then the next time anyone raise their hand, I'm supporting, maybe a dozen candidates around the country who are for cash relief. And it's putting pressure on people in their district to get on board. So I need help, we need help, you need help, the American people need help. The fact that 1.2 million people signed that change.org petition, that's like a drop in the bucket. I mean, like, we can all see tens of millions of lives, like tens of millions of jobs have been lost, and that's an underestimate, because the reality is a lot of people who had these part-time informal jobs, like, they can't file for unemployment. So if you look at it, you're talking at about at least 25 to 30% of the US population will not have any meaningful income. And every day counts. Like, you can hang on for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but by the time you get to month 2 or 3, terrible things start to happen in that household, in that family, in that community.
Absolutely. I want to bring it back to you, Andrew, to close. Do you see Democratic leadership, and that includes presidential nominee Joe Biden, making recurring payments as part of the Democratic platform in 2020? And if not, what do you think needs to happen to make sure that they get there?
You know, I spoke to Joe a number of days ago, and Joe's open-minded about the fact that we are on the edge, if not already in a new depression. And one thing you know about Joe is he's not that ideological. Like, he's actually fairly pragmatic, and he will certainly get on board universal basic income if there's a groundswell of popular support and Democratic legislators and leaders are heading in that direction. So we all need to fire up as many Democratic legislators and leaders as we can to say that universal basic income is a necessity. And Joe will support that. Joe right now is open-minded about the fact that we need a new deal or a new Marshall Plan to rebuild the country. So that this is like, we have to energize the leadership. We have to get Trump out of there, and then we have to start getting to work. And I love Felicia's framing of from the Roosevelt Institute, because this is very much reminiscent of the Great Depression that FDR led us out of. And the New Deal was necessary then to maintain our way of life. There's a chance we can actually improve our way of life and address the generational inequities that have led us to this point. And I believe Joe is going to be our president, and Joe is going to sign universal basic income into law in his first term.
Thank you so much. And I want to thank all of you. You know, this is a moment of enormous uncertainty and unprecedented, at least unprecedented in our lifetimes, economic crisis. And all of you have led the way and been transformative on this issue in a way that I don't think any of us could have imagined how quickly and urgent, how quickly it would become so urgent. So I just want to thank all of you so much for joining us. I know you're all extremely busy people, and it means so much that you joined us today.
These declassified.
All right. So I noticed that somebody in our comment section had mentioned, was wondering whether Andrew has been added to the speakers list, because the Democratic Convention is starting, I think, something on the 18th, like a week from now or something like that. It's happening soon. And Andrew Yang was left off the first list of speakers. And I actually have a tweet from Carla Marinucci to share. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to share my screen, like my entire screen, because now we don't need audio for this. Let's take a look at this.
Let Yang Speak DNC was trending at number 6 at one point today. And then the VP announcement came out, and then we kind of got lost in that.
So I have a tweet up on. Are you ready for it?
Excitement, I guess.
Yeah, so it's just, I'm told unofficially that Andrew Yang has been added.
I love this one from Ted Lieu.
All right, let's go in and look. Asian Americans are the fastest increasing group in America. And their Democratic VP pick is part Asian, so.
Yeah, and Tammy Duckworth is talking as well. So in a way, it's like, I mean, I think we're still trying to feel out politically how to like give Asian Americans proper due. And I mean, in some ways, I think the point to argue for Andrew is that is the vision that he brought that has turned out to be highly relevant into this pandemic, because honestly, he didn't get that many votes. So that's not really our strength of our argument. And with Asian Americans already, like there are some Asian Americans on that, prominent ones on that schedule, I think we should maybe be the vision that he's saying that's highly relevant and more relevant than even a few months ago. And, he does need to be there. His voice does need to be on there.
Well, I hope that it is true. I mean, it's just a rumor at this point, I would feel, if it says I'm told unofficially, but she's put her own, her own reputation on the line for that. I wanted to go to this one. This is a share about an article about Kamala Harris herself, and I think that's really our focus today, is to learn more about our possible new vice president. So we all know that she's a prosecutor. Everybody remembers.
So a lot of people have a lot of issues about that. So I think that's like that's a big part of it. Like, she's a cop, and so like, how are we gonna like soften these people and to see how we have to show them that this is an opportunity, and everybody's really stuck on on the past, and I am very guilty of that myself. So admittedly, but like, it does, you can judge a person on their actions of the past and stuff. So like, that's a little scary. That's a little scary to some people.
I personally have a problem with having more prosecutors and
like,
but
yeah. Thank you.
I think that I have to give her a chance to grow and change, and I really do like the fact that she is understanding the importance of a recurrent cash stimulus right now. I think everybody remembers her as the person who attacked Joe Biden the hardest, right? During the last Democratic debates.
It was really ironic.
Well,
so I think it's interesting that that they're still able to work together, and I think we should be able to follow their lead.
Well, also too, I mean, she was a black DA, and that, I mean, the very first mayor of Los Angeles was a cop, was literally a cop, and so I do think there is a subtle difference here. Is she? I mean, no. I think there's enough question that I do think is justified, and we should like hold her accountable for that. But at the same time, I think what Annette's saying, how do you have us all be thinking affirmatively about what we'd like to see and hold her accountable to, so we can get this, basically, this is like catch a thief right now, like with Trump and all of his people. This is the swamp, and we don't want the swamp. Basically, the swamp is about to take us over if he gets reelected again. So, we kind of need a cop.
Well, I think people actually like the fact that she's sort of the attack person, and she's able to sort of bolster support for Joe by being more like stronger and more aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, part of it, as I think I see James' comment, that there's actually former Speaker of the House in California, Willie Brown, wrote an article today that basically was encouraging Kamala Harris to say no to vice president and be the attorney general instead, because that's where her, given her skills, she would be there for that.
That's what I always wanted.
Yeah. But that's not where we are.
That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
So here's something I did not know about. It says that she was close to Biden's late son.
Yeah, I think that was a big deal. That was really a big deal. Yeah, they were both attorney generals of the respective states. So there was some there, and so Joe Biden was very close to his son, Beau, especially close to that particular son. And if Beau kind of like really had a lot of respect for Kamala Harris, I'm sure that translated.
So they were attorney generals together, because
Yeah,
she was an
Delaware.
attorney general
Yeah.
of California, while he was also an attorney general in Delaware.
Yeah.
But that wouldn't mean like you would like necessarily work closely together. So it's interesting that they were friends.
Well, they talked. Yeah, that's a good point. It's like just because they hold those office doesn't necessarily mean they would get along with each other, but they did. They did. So.
And of course, I hope by this time we all know that she's the daughter of immigrants.
Yeah. And it seems like they're mostly raised by their mother, though. And then she was living in, weren't they? She being raised in Canada before going to college.
Well, it's interesting because I don't think everybody knows that both parents were immigrants, right?
Mm-hmm.
Her mother, Shyamala, was the daughter of an Indian diplomat and worked as a cancer researcher, while her father was born in Jamaica and taught economics at Stanford. And they actually met through civil rights protesting at UC Berkeley in the 1960s.
Yeah, Berkeley. Yeah, a lot of radicals come out of there.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's still happening, but there's something about this school that that politicizes people and teaches them about how to make protest. So the thing that I noticed that that Trump said about her was that he remembers how hard she went on Brett Kavanaugh, and that he said he was never going to forget that. Like he's going to do something about it, and that somehow that's bad. Like most of us actually think that was probably a good thing.
Well, it's up his base, So I think in that sense, I never call Trump stupid. I mean, because he has a certain kind of craftiness to him, and so I think that's exactly the kind of thing to demonize her with his base, is to say, oh, she was so horrible to Brett Kavanaugh, even though they may not necessarily be fans of Brett Kavanaugh either, but yeah, that was a pretty divisive set of hearings about him.
So I would say that, have you guys noticed that Trump has been like daily calling for the debates to come earlier? He keeps talking about wanting to debate Joe earlier, right before the whole Democratic National Convention and everything, which would keep him busy. I mean, that would be the reason why you wouldn't be debate in the middle of trying to host another debate right now. So it's kind of weird. Yeah.
Well, actually, it's a good strategy. Basically, one, he knows I think Trump knows he's in trouble. So he's trying to basically have more debates. And then he's also trying to have the narrative to his base that Biden is hiding in the basement, that he couldn't withstand a debate. That's the image that Trump is putting out. And so by asking Biden to debate early, knowing that Biden will not do that, actually fits right into that narrative.
Yeah, I mean, I think time constraints wise, it's just not possible to do another debate right this minute.
And why would he want to?
Busy preparing for other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's also there's twin narratives going on the information side. So I was talking with somebody who is a Trump supporter and seemed to think they were focusing on how Biden, they said, didn't know what he was doing, in terms of the pandemic. And I sort of pointed out that Biden said what to do in January, and the person didn't believe it. Then I had to go and get the receipts. I had to show him Biden did an op-ed in USA Today. He basically said three things in an op-ed in January, something like that Trump is not equipped to deal with this pandemic that's coming. This pandemic is going to be a lot more serious than we think, and that Trump had dismantled what, the plan that was in place for pandemics, and really we should be doing those things in order to respond to it. So, in that sense, Biden is the opposite of Trump. I mean, Trump had never run for office before. And so he doesn't really know how government works. He's just sort of making it up and pushing it and exercising powers that aren't even his. And so in a way, it's like what Biden and Harris need to do is the opposite of what we all romanticize. I mean, I think maybe we all want some like hero just out there doing all this stuff when really no, what they need to start doing is they almost need to be making the machine, especially this close out, the machine to roll over, get the votes and win, and then to be prepared to take over like in the transition, because I do not think this administration is going to be cooperative in any way for a Biden administration when, if it wins. They will not cooperate at all. They're probably going to burn up everything before they'll just cooperate with them. So they should just assume that. And this is all going to play itself out within the next 2 to 3 months.
Well, the Democratic Convention is coming up August 17th through the 20th. And you'll be able to watch whatever's happening anytime you want to at DEMCONVENTION.com. So demconvention.com is the website. And it looks like the presidential election debates are going to be held. There's going to be 3 of them so far lined up. On September 29th is going to be the first one, and it will be at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio. And the vice presidential debates will be happening next, October 7th, at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City, Utah. So those are the next events coming up, and it's coming up very quickly, isn't it? We're already here in the middle of August now.
Yeah, and I think, and get to the point that you had from Pia's point, it's like, but she was just professional. She was not horrible to Kavanaugh at all. She was actually very professional, because she pretty much always is. And so, I mean, I think in some ways we have to consider that we're used to assuming that everyone is sticking with Trump no matter what. But in other ways, we have to wonder if he's really just digging his own grave right now, I mean, he avoids talking about the pandemic. He's still not even doing anything about the pandemic and, kids going back to school and stuff like that. And he's saying these things which are still horrible. I mean, he's saying all the things that have led some people to turn against him. He keeps doing these things.
What are you trying to get a screenshot of?
There you go, Pia. I put it back up for you. Pia wanted to get a screenshot of the quote.
Let's all smile for the camera.
Well,
all right.
But actually, I mean, I'm glad Pia raised that, because, I mean, just think about this for a second. We have so many knuckleheads in the administration, like this current administration, people who aren't qualified. They're only there because they were donors. These are swamp creatures, and they're being put in charge of stuff. And yet, and so we actually have someone who happens to be a woman and African American and Indian, Jamaican, who's actually competent. I mean, you can like or dislike Kamala Harris, but what you cannot say that she's unprofessional. She is the consummate professional with what she does, and so, hey, I think
and she comes from a public university rather than one of those Ivy Leagues.
Oh, that's right. And Howard University as well, Howard University,
But that's interesting that people are concerned about these, these things about her. I think Yang Gang, though, we've been divided up to now in a lot of ways, because we've been disappointed with the choices that we have in front of us to choose. And I think there's going to be people continuing to be disappointed. But, I understand that what we needed was time to mourn. When Andrew Yang suspended his campaign, everybody was devastated, and some of us were like, old, like some people had been doing politics. They'd been doing politics for years, decades, and they were immediately like, well, this happens all the time. We lose a person and then we just get ourselves back up, and immediately the next week we're on to the next candidate we need to support. We need to, help this candidate and that candidate. Sometimes 100 candidates, some of the more politically involved among us. But then there's so many Yang Gang who are new to politics, and it was just extremely sad to lose the person that you wanted to see make it. And so we just needed a little more time to mourn. But now I have to call on everyone to end that mourning. There has to be a cessation at some point. We have to move forward now. And let's take a good hard look at what really needs to happen now, because we have a short time, right, before the election happens. So Ariel, did you have something you wanted to add?
Well, it's kind of like, when Darth Vader like hits Obi-Wan Kenobi, but then like Obi-Wan Kenobi is like that ghost, but he can still kind of like, talk. it's like Andrew's out of the race. He's not dead. So like, he's still there, and he's still actually like, I think they struck him down and then he became more powerful than they could ever imagine. Because like, like if we just get like our own kind of AOC in Congress, and I really think like David Kim has the potential to be like the Yang Gang's AOC in our Congress. If we can just get like 5 firebrand Yang Gang Humanity First people in Congress, that'll change the game in such a powerful way that we're not here to just like, beg to have what we want. We are a force to be reckoned with, and I think that'll change the entire political calculus for good if that happens.
Yeah, so I wanted to specifically, tell Annette not to feel bad about all of the times when, you might have been like, I don't want to hear about Kamala Harris. I don't want to hear about Joe anymore, because that was a time we needed. We needed some time to not have to start supporting somebody else because we're not ready yet. We haven't moved. We haven't gotten to that point, And but now we're in the last month or two, and we're going to have to pull it together now and really think about how to make our country work better. And I think that the people that we're looking at are more inclined to take on the policies that we want to happen.
Oh yeah, and Cori Bush supports UBI.
Cori Bush is pretty awesome. Yeah, I remember watching a video with Cori Bush in there.
I think one Yang Gang who makes it into Congress will just like open up the floodgates, because like when you're a when you're in Congress, like your salary is, what is it, like $174,000 per year. Just imagine somebody makes it, gets that $174,000 a year, and then like imagine how much resources that person would have to like put money into like other Yang Gang congressional runs, or get in front of the cameras and get in front of the media. I mean, the possibilities are endless. So like if we intelligently exploit all of these routes to getting our voice heard and doing what we need to do, we have like the best shot ever. And the pandemic, I mean, it's terrible, but I mean, it is the best argument for what we have to offer. The Yang Gang has to offer. Like it made the argument for us. Mandatory unemployment. I mean,
Yeah, which is not to say that we shouldn't, like Quintus says, stay on our toes and keep them all honest. When they leave Andrew out of the debates again, or they leave him out of the convention, or and just want to not acknowledge us, we need to step up and go ahead and say, we are here and we're not leaving.
We're gonna hold their feet to the fire. I mean, like just look at what happened when Bernie didn't make it to be the nominee and Hillary Clinton won. It just opened up like like, so it made his 2020 run like that much more passionate. So hey, and who are the biggest people who are pissed off at Yang? It was like the Bernie people. Now, it's not say if someone like in 2024, if Yang decides to run and somebody challenges Yang in 2024, who's actually more logical and mathematical and has UBI and has all of Yang's humanity first qualities, like, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't be like, hey, like, Yang don't win in 2020, shame on you for like running up against him. I mean, maybe they have better ideas. Then I'll be like, oh, okay, I'll take a look, But that's the biggest lesson that we should learn, is that don't, like, you catch more like flies with honey than with vinegar. So like, the more of the political spectrum we can like get into the fold of humanity first, the more powerful we're just going to become until nothing can stop us. That's the good news.
Right. In the next administration, if Andrew Yang doesn't get a cabinet position, will we be extremely disappointed, or what's going to happen now? Are we still expecting him to maybe have some additional role to play?
I hope so, but if that doesn't happen, but 3 Congress people win their runs, they could definitely put the pressure on Biden to have that happen. So we're gonna have some real leverage. We'll see what happens.
And it seems like he has a pretty good relationship with Kamala Harris also. Remember when they stood together after they had suspended, and they I feel like Andrew said that he had a good working relationship with her and really respected her, and especially how warm and kind she was during their campaign meetings.
Well, she was talking about the monthly recurring $2,000 in the video you just played. So, I mean, like, is she gonna change that? Well, now that she's Biden's VP pick, I mean, like we'll have to see what happens.
So, Annette, how are you feeling about what going into this next period? Are you going to be watching the debates, for example, and things like that?
I will definitely and always watch Yang. If Yang's on the screen, I'm watching it.
So if he shows up for the DNC
so,
as a speaker, then you would probably watch that.
Yes. One of our Yang Gang sisters, Sarah Darby Wright, she was just like, okay, look, like, I'm not saying that I'm not going to vote for Biden. I'm just paraphrasing. I'm not saying I won't vote for him, but like, and I appreciate the diversity of the ticket, but like, she wasn't my favorite pick, and I need a minute. That's what she said. I need a minute. And I'm like, that's exactly where I am. Like, I just need a minute to like take some things in and maybe kind of change my mind a little bit on some things, because I've been really like dark and aggressive like for some months, man. Like, it's been some hard months. And I get really emotional, and then I already have depression and anxiety.
Right.
It's heavy. So, like, I just need a minute to process some shit. Chances are I'm still going to vote for Biden, because watching that video, what Yang said today, or in that video, was that Biden is open to it. We just have to show him. So I'm going to go to Twitter every single day until we get UBI, some sort of a universal type healthcare system, and freaking universal cannabis legalization. That's my holy trinity. UBI, UHC, and cannabis. And then we can start working Kamala Harris on releasing all of the nonviolent offenders from the prison. So this will give her an opportunity to show that she means business, and that she really is for the people, because those 4 things right there alone would change the course of society, like you know. So
Right. So I think that, for example, each of us may have a slightly different pick in terms of what are our top 3, policies. Mine doesn't include that aspect, but I think it should. Now that you're talking about it, originally I wouldn't have thought of that as being the third prong, but the third prong really needs to be, I think, reworking the justice system too.
yes, yeah, that could be part of it, like if we could just push both Biden and Kamala, if we could just push those policies, not like be assholes, okay? So I need to change my approach, because I approach Biden like I'm poking my finger in his face, and you're going to hear me. You know what I mean? I am completely invisible to him. Completely and totally. But maybe his, like somebody might read tweets to him. I don't know. It makes me feel better to just say it. Like, listen. But if I change my approach, I really love Scott Santon's approach to Biden. He's on every tweet, man, every tweet right at the top. And he's like, well, actually, if we would implement a universal basic income, then that would alleviate this, and this, and yada, yada. I tend to call him out on workers, hardworking families, working families, and he eliminates like entire gigantic demographic of people that don't work in the traditional sense, but still do all sorts, but still have value and still do things, like I still do things. I feel like what I'm doing right here has value. Would I like to have some money for it? That'd be fantastic, because I have put hundreds and hundreds of hours into this, and I do pay for this streaming service. It costs me money to do this. I would love a little bit of return on my investment, but it's whatever. I do it because I love it, and because I feel like it's our duty or whatever. It's this is what this is the path we're on, and we got to do it for free so we can get the reward in the end and we can secure the bag.
Would you consider that $1,200 stimulus check for each human being that is under a certain amount of whatever? Would you consider that that stimulus check to be part of your payback? As something that you personally achieved for us?
The one that was spent the day that we got it.
Yes, but it's the one that's going to lead to future ones, I think.
I'd have to wrap my head around that a little bit. I felt like that was just like a little breadcrumb, like you're starving and he like throws you a saltine and a roll of paper towels. That's what I felt like that was. I felt like it was like kind of an insult. Okay, goodbye, Brian. Brian's leaving us. So, thanks for joining.
I'm gonna have to leave too.
Yeah, we're coming up on an hour and a half, so we can bring it to a close. Does anybody have any closing statements?
Just keep fighting. That's it. in a way that makes sense, a way that's strategic, in a way that uses the best parts
Zephyr, do you want to come
of
say
your
goodbye?
mind and your humanity. That's it.
Say goodbye, Mom. So Zephyr has his mommy haircut. Zephyr, sit up real tall so everyone can see you. Zephyr, sit up. Sit up. There you go.
Oh.
All of my children
Hey,
get this
Zephyr.
exact same haircut when I cut their hair. And I had a friend ask me today, can I get the Zephyr haircut too?
All right.
Because there's nobody, you know, because we're not going to barbershops anymore. Zephyr's about to take a scissors to my hair.
No.
I told him you can try it. Why not?
You look up a YouTube video on.
No.
Pia says, "Hi Zephyr, nice
you're gonna have to give me
well
some
done,
tips."
Faye.
Annette, you're the one who has to give me the tips how to do it
Lessons.
right.
Yep.
Or maybe you
For,
could.
Anybody that doesn't know, I was a hairstylist for 30 years, and so
you should totally
30
get
years.
on the,
I was a hairstylist, and
Annette, you should totally
I
get
should
on
do
the
some
Zoom.
sort of do-it-yourself YouTube haircuts.
But you should get on the Zoom
Deborah
with
says
Zephyr.
yes, I should.
I'm gonna put headset on him, and you can talk him through how to cut my hair. we should have a you could be teaching him while he does it.
No, I'll teach you how to cut your own hair. It's actually
It would be like
one technique is super duper easy.
So just grab it in one, grab it in a bunch, and go. I remember when I was little, I had like these.
No. Do not.
I got this book, and the book said it was a book about somebody who was talked down. It was a young woman who had to fly an airplane and bring it down while she was blind. But she was the only person, like the person who was supposed to be flying the plane had been had gotten sick or something, and it was a really interesting story. I'd be like, we could totally do a similar, Zephyr trying to cut my hair while being talked through it.
I've been. That sounds pretty wild. I don't know about all that. But okay, well, let's wrap this up then. Thanks everybody for joining us. Thank you for all the people leaving comments. We're glad. Thanks to all the viewers. We had quite a few viewers, and I guess that's about it. So
thanks for joining
Humanity
us.
First
Quintus
Forever. Everybody, Yang Gang love.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Bye, everybody.